Welcome to the She Slays the Day podcast with Dr. Lauryn Brunslick. Direct, soulful, comedic, advice for female chiropractors' most stagnating questions. Let's talk business, marriage and relationships, momming, and self-development. Here's your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunslick.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Lauryn Brunslick, and I'm your host of the She Slays the Day podcast. Yes! Okay, so are you getting the weekly Slay emails? If not, what's up with that? So if you're listening to this podcast, that means that you get my super weird and slightly offensive personality, and therefore, you're my friend, and you should sign up for an additional dose of me. So every Sunday night, I send out a short little inspiration for your week. This is meant to make you feel all empowered like Beyonce and shit, and to do something cool, either to make yourself a better person, #empathy, or go on and change the world. All right, we're probably not going to figure out how you can change the world in 4 to 6 sentences. But I don't know. I don't want to limit myself or you and what you and I can do together with these emails. So to sign up for these free emails, go to sheslayspodcast.com/besties. And then you'll be my bestie. Speaking of friends, this review today is a shorty but a goodie. So if you think that you need to get all in touch with your feelings to write a good review for me, you're wrong. These can be really quick. The really only thing is that they can't be insulting. Nope, I take that back. They can also be insulting. I would totally read an insulting review. But anyway, this one's not insulting. So it is titled Finally by Christine Helen. So it says, I am so excited for this platform and community. It's time for female chiropractors to speak out, lift each other up, and love our patients in the process. Hell yeah. So that is 5 stars. Thank you, Christine Helen. I really appreciate that you took that time to do that real quick. So today we have a powerhouse chiropractic woman, Dr. Kate Jones. I met her. I tell you a little bit how we met when we start talking, but we're like two forces at a chiropractic convention that you can just see you and I, we are cut from the same cloth. Yes. Okay. We're going to be friends. So she's a family chiropractor, dedicated wife, and playful mama of 2. Her transition to and through motherhood, I've heard her speak on it. It started in chiropractic school, and it's really been an interesting one that shaped her into the powerful woman she is today. So she is a Kairos Training Culture lead facilitator, and she shows up as a strong female example just within that Kairos Training Culture community. She's also an advocate for her son who has dynamic needs. She provides an empowering voice and support for parents of children with a variety of special needs. Her and I actually in our conversation within 3 minutes, we were talking about her son who has, I like how she puts it, dynamic needs. She called that out and I was like, ooh, I like that. I'm going to use that because my daughter Charlie totally has dynamic needs. So in her first year of practice, she created an expansive and loving community while working 20 hours a week, raising 2 kids, supporting her husband's booming career, and overcoming postpartum depression and anxiety naturally. So along with blooming in her chiropractic practice, she's developed an 8-week program where participants learn her selfish method for better understanding their own needs for self-care and self-love. She's most excited about continually connecting and pouring into her tribe, whether it's speaking on stages, podcasts, or facilitating in the Kairos Training Culture community. So before we get to that discussion, though, I do have to tell you all about something awesome. If you haven't checked out the page sheslayspodcast.com/savings, you need to. So we've got 10% off the beautiful spine and musculoskeletal system watercolor paintings by none other of Sandy Spines. Check out her gorgeous Etsy store for not just 10% off your order, but a free sticker when you use promo code SheSlays. We also got you 20% off your first month of health and fitness coaching with Megan Sanby. If you don't know who she is, go back, listen to episode 10, where you'll hear her helping me as I just blabber on about my own issues I carry around body image, self-love, and weight. And she can help you with your own blah, blah, blah that you have in your head that you've been carrying with you for probably decades. So mention She Slays when you do your intro call with her to save 20% off your first month. And then lastly, my favorite resource that we added to our clinics in 2019 is something called the Progressive app by Connected and Inspired Media. So this is an app that helps you, the doctor, save time in delivering stretches, exercises, and other educational tools to the pregnant women and the moms and dads in your clinic. And of course, save 20% off your first month by mentioning She Slays. So for information on how to contact or find those people, go to sheslayspodcast.com/savings. And now you know what time it is. It's prayer time. If you're able to, just stop what you're doing for 30 seconds. Be present with us. If you're multitasking, let's just all connect together through this microphone. Dear God, thank you so much for the conversations like this that we have on the show today that are being had everywhere now. Women expect so much perfection out of ourselves, and it can seriously drive us mad and anxious, and ultimately drives us away from you and farther away from the purpose that you have for us on this earth. Help whoever needs to hear this message today to hear it loud and clear. They are more valuable than clean laundry being put away in a Marie Kondo folding fashion. They are more valuable than a shuttle bus for their kids to practice. Help everyone listening to dig deep inside themselves, determine what they need as a human to be fueled and empowered and passionate to make a difference. In your name, we pray. Amen. And now, without further ado, the powerhouse woman, Dr. Kate Jones.
Okay, so listeners, today on our episode of She Slays the Day, we have Dr. Kate Jones. Whoop, whoop.
Hey.
And I like it when I have somebody on the show that I've met before in person.
Yeah.
I always do like a pre-talk before. So we've gotten to talk, meet each other at Devin Brana's Big Idea event this past September. And then we got to talk on the phone and pregame. And I should have been recording that phone call because
we went 0 to 60 on that one.
Yes. This is a girl we are cut from the same cloth because it started with, how's your morning going? You talked about drop off. And within 3 minutes, we were talking about like deep parenting, Kairos concepts. So it was good.
We jumped into the deep end.
Okay. So I saved a very hard question for you. I knew I was going to need a woman who wears lots of hats, and you definitely, when I met you actually at the Big Idea, I was like, that's who I'm going to talk to about. So I'll read the question and then we can just start dissecting it.
Yeah.
So this question comes from Dr. Amy. And she says, hi, She Slays. I'm currently suffering from overwhelm and constantly putting myself at the bottom of the list of priorities. I'm 36, have 3 kids, ages 3, 9, and 11, and a husband whose career is the breadwinner. He likes it and doesn't have an interest in leaving the corporate world. I absolutely love my practice, so I wouldn't want to cut back, but I'm just trying to figure out how it all adds up as there's only so many hours in a day. Right now, I'm in solo practice for a pediatric and prenatal practice in the suburb I live in. We're almost 100% cash, see about 150 patients a week. My hours are 8 to noon and 3 to 6, 4 days a week, and 7 to 2 on Friday. We have parents that help take the kids to practices and help transport, but I don't feel like they can commit more, and I don't want to delegate it all. I want to actually be there sometimes. So if it was only about balancing practice and my kids, I got it. But then when you start asking me to get gym time in, friendships, reading self-help books, journaling, meditating, there's an exclamation mark and question mark there.
Meditating!
Then the wheels fall off the cart and I just can't. How do you do it all?
Oh, man.
So I always answer that. How do you do it all?
This is the question.
This is the question. I'm going to have 0 more people writing in after this because everyone's just like, yeah, mic drop. That's me too. I want to know that one.
Right. Can you please answer this one on the meta of this whole entire thing? Yeah. Okay. So where do we want to start with this is the real
I feel like I have a visceral, like I almost can't keep it down whenever I'm asked the question, how do you do it all? Like, it's like, I can't help but respond with like, I don't like, and I feel like that's becoming more and more of a standard thing that we're talking about in society. So that it's like, no, this is a false perception that we just need to retire, that everybody out there is doing it all.
Yeah. Well, like, do you think Beyonce's doing her fucking laundry? No. We gotta delegate and outsource some stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess that's where I would start, is like, it seems like, I don't know. So, okay. So why don't you, this is good. Sometimes I get about 20 minutes into an interview. Before we start unraveling this, why don't you give your background? That's important.
Oh. Hi, everybody. In case you have no idea who I am.
I know. Greatest host ever.
We just jumped right on and we were like, oh yeah, by the way. So hi, everyone who's listening. I'm Dr. Kate Jones. I practice out in Oakland, California, at The Source Chiropractic with my husband, Dr. Brett Jones, and many other incredible, amazing chiropractors, Dr. Jordan Fairley, Dr. Austin Ivan, Dr. Lauryn Alders, Dr. Dylan Mon. We've got like a crew of 6 of us in there. It's really, really freaking fantastic. I'm also a part of Kairos Training Culture, which is globally all over doing incredible things for artistry development, business development, and intentional living, not only for chiropractic students and chiropractors, but again, the public. Brett and I have 2 kids. We've got a little boy, Jax, who's 5, Willow, who's 2. I'm painting this picture of like, we wear a lot of hats because I think that's important too, because some people might see me in a space as like, oh, Dr. Kate at The Source, or, oh, Dr. Kate at, a Kairos event, or, oh, she's, doing school drop off and, what the hell else where else does she go during the day?
Right.
And so when we are these multifaceted beings, I think the biggest thing that we can really pay attention to is what are our biggest needs that we want to get met, right? And that's something that I also have developed an 8-week course called Selfish. That's all around, the tagline on it is how to unapologetically give a shit about yourself, which is important.
Yep.
Especially, for anybody, whether you have kids or whether you don't have kids, but really building that sustainable structure and foundation of taking an inventory of where are you in these very important parts of your life, whether it's, your romantic relationships, your friendships, your business, your, connection to spirit, God, the all, whatever you want to call it. How do you speak to that? Where are these different places that you can find your own self-love and self-forgiveness and self-evolution? And when we start to dissect all these pieces of who we are, it can kind of get a little overwhelming. And then that's where I feel like the bigness of this question of how do you do it all comes in. Mm-hmm. Because I think we've been programmed into thinking that we have to sign up for this one piece of our identity and go so far into only identifying with that one quote unquote role that when we feel the need to shift and be dynamic, we start freaking out a little bit.
I love that word, dynamic. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the first things that needs to happen, and hopefully Dr. Amy's done this, but like before writing in to me, I would love, I hope that she's had a conversation with her support. And basically, because what happens is like, like when you throw kids and careers in the mix and bills and conferences and practices, you fall into marital default. Yeah. And like, I don't want to alienate like anybody who isn't married and having kids. That's a whole different level of overwhelm. That'll be a different topic that we'll talk about a different day. But today, this is a married woman with kids. And like, you kind of fall into this survival mode of like, he unloads the dishes, I load the dishes. I pick up Wednesdays and Thursdays, he drops off here. And so like somewhere along the line, just there's this unspoken, like, you do this, I do that. You zig, I zag. This is a well-oiled machine. And so what needs to happen is one of the cogs in the wheel needs to, I would recommend doing this on a calm day, not like when you're like freaking out, like this isn't working. Be like, we need to talk. This isn't working. This is not an attack on you at all. This is just me as your wife and a part of this relationship saying like, I can't sustain this anymore. So before I start, like my health starts going downhill or, my mental and physical health starts going out downhill. Let's collaborate. Let's figure out. So because I can't sustain this.
And one of my favorite tools with that too is utilizing nonviolent communication, which is really about needs-based communication. So when we look at our feelings or our emotions, they're really the downstream effect of a need that's either being met or a need that's not being met. Again, this is something that is a big concept within that. It's also something that I teach in Selfish. And it's also, again, the foundation of communication that Brett and I use in our marriage. So it's like, we don't really wait for things it requires also radical presence with yourself as well as with your partner, because then you're not leaving anything to be kind of vague or like, I'm going to be resentful about this and I'm just not going to say anything. It really comes down to, you can communicate not from an emotional place, but from a place of understanding like, hey, so I'm feeling upset or overwhelmed or exhausted or tired. And it's because my need for recuperation is not being met. Or I'm feeling disconnect or distance, and it's because my need for communication is not being met. I'm not feeling what's another good one that I can use that comes up a lot with people in their relationships? Oh, I'm not feeling as connected from an intimacy level. It's because my need for love and appreciation isn't being met. So again, when we can identify what it is that's happening, the things or the shit that's on top of it, it then doesn't become like, you didn't unload the fucking dishwasher. It's like, my need for connection wasn't met because you came home and you started doing a whole bunch of other stuff, rather than like having a moment to see me and for me to see you. Because it is true. It's like when we get really, really busy, we fall to our default patterns of safety. Mm-hmm. And when we know that we have somebody that's incredibly reliable, that we've been in this like team response, to life with one another, you do get in a rhythm, and that rhythm is incredibly effective too. And there is also the moment where you need to go, hey, I still see you. And making sure that you're carving out the time to still see that person as who they are, who they're continuing to evolve into, and who they are in the present moment. Because that was a big thing that came up with Brett and I a few years ago, was I had gotten so dropped into my own fight or flight sympathetic patterns of like, shit, I'm in grad school. We had a new baby. There was so much going on. Like, he was just starting in practice. Like, we had legitimately freaking crazy shit going on. And it was like 3 years of me like not paying attention to myself at all, not advocating for what my needs actually were. I was upset all the time that he was traveling, even though I knew it was like a great thing that was building, and it's become this incredible community that we have that, we pour into and pours into our family as well. But for me, it was like I was building resentment because I wasn't getting my own needs met. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is we also see opportunities where we will enter into partnership as independent people, but then we fall to codependent patterns.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And so that, not to say that this is what's happening at all in this relationship, but the bit to pull out of it is when I can fully understand what my individual needs are, and then take and create appropriate action towards getting those needs met and not feel guilty about it. That's another thing that comes up for moms, is like, we feel guilty taking time for ourselves.
Oh yeah. Okay, so hold on. I have like so many notes. I'm like, all right, I know the next 17 things we're going to talk about. So what are there just common needs? You talking along this pattern with, I'm sure this comes up a lot with like your patients. Yeah. It's just, when something's on your heart, So if I was like Amy and I'm like, okay, well, I need to eat food and I need to sleep. Like if we don't know much about what some of the needs are of humanity, what are some of the more common ones? You listed.
And there's really great, we can even probably link it too, because sometimes with starting with this language, it is difficult to find like, oh man, like where.
That was going to be my next question of how the heck do you start training yourself and your spouse?
And you can even look at, one of the great things that you can look at even on like the Center for Nonviolent Communication, they have a 1-pager that is a needs inventory. And so sometimes we can't communicate what we want because we don't have the language for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so exercising the language of that will also help open up the awareness and the consciousness around the concept. And then we're more able to step into places of facilitating those types of conversations. Because like if you were trying to describe something that was a certain color, but you'd never seen that color before, how the hell would you describe it?
Yep.
If you're trying to describe an emotion that you're feeling, but you don't have a word for it, how are you supposed to communicate it? And then if you're feeling that emotion, you're like, well, shit, I don't even know what this means. I didn't even know that this was a need that was lacking because I don't know what my needs are. Right. But when you have like a list that's like, okay, I can look through and be like, is this a need for connection? Is this like, I need to feel supported or do I not feel safe?
Right.
And they're very different. They're both needs for connection, but it's like, okay, what do I actually need in this moment? So
Did you say there were some common ones that kind of like go together?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the ones that come up that I see with people are typically they have a need for, community is a big one that comes up for people, especially for moms. Love and intimacy are other ones too, because you kind of, it's this whole relearning of like who you actually are after you have a kid. Another big one that comes up for people is like freedom and independence. But you can also look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which will take you from the bottom of like your most, what do I want to call it? Why can't I use the word? Basic.
Yeah.
Like your physiological needs. Yep. Right? Like how do I need water. I need food. Yeah. And then moving up into, safety needs of like, okay, like, do I have a roof over my head? How am I doing? Then you have love and belonging and then, self-esteem. And then you're going up to self-actualization, which is higher levels of consciousness and evolution in a whole new way. But it's a little difficult to land into self-actualization needs getting met if you're like, I'm starving.
Yep. So actually rewind. I said the first step is like, okay, you need to sit down with your support system. And you need to sit down with yourself. This is the fun and horrible part of like this show is like, we could just go way off and Dr. Amy's like, yeah, no, but we're just assuming that we're totally on track. So it's like she needs to sit down with herself because I've definitely had those moments like, where I'm just so, and I don't like using the word busy, but like in a negative way, I'm busy. Like I'm just like mentally just like, and I'm like doing the thing and I'm just not in my connected groove a week. Yeah. And my husband will be like, okay, like you seem like, how can I help? What can I do for you? And I literally can't even answer. Yeah. Because I'm like, well, you can't go to work for me. You can't do that thing. You can't work out at the gym for me. And I'm just like, but so prior to sitting down with support, sitting down because like, what do I need?
Yeah.
That's the first step.
For sure. Because then when you can do that for yourself, because again, we're looking at, here's another big concept I'm going to drop in. Sorry. We're looking for sovereignty.
Ooh. Shit, I want to make sure we talk about that. Yeah, well, let's just talk about that right now. What?
So in our own individual expression, we need to understand that we can get individually all our own needs met, right? There are other ways too within our relationships where it's like, okay, is this a need for connection that really does need another person that like that you want to be with your beloved and you want to spend time with them and you want that is like a piece of connection that does have a need that has another person associated to it, but also that need for connection can also be fulfilled within. Right. So when we're constantly looking for other people to meet our needs, we're operating in a codependent pattern.
Yep.
Versus when we're able to stand in our own freedom and in our own sovereignty, then we're able to get our own needs met and then figure out, okay, where do I move from there? Brett and I talk a lot about this too. And this is a big thing that we moved into was and it got to a point where I was like, I so didn't know who I was that he looked at me. He was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Yep.
And it was because he was like, where are you? Like, what is going on? Where is this, incredible, free, independent, like woman that I married? Like, where did you go? Where are you? And I was so detached from myself too, that I was like, well, I don't know who I am or where I am or what's going on. And for him to say that to me was like, oh shit, like everything might go up into flames if I don't pull my shit together. And it wasn't me pulling it together in order to like make my marriage work. It was for me to save my own ass.
Yep.
And so when I realized that and I started to say like, what is it with me that I need to understand and deepen into and reconnect to? That's when everything on my external started to change, right? Above, down, inside out. It's the same thing with everything, right?
Yeah. So he had no chance of helping you because you didn't know.
I had to do it for myself. And then it took us out of codependence and into co-leadership. So then we're both able to lead and step into the world and step into our own work in our own spaces as leaders, but as leaders together. And then now we're, branching even more into this understanding of that individual sovereignty and what does it look like in a united sovereignty space.
So if you have you had Brett, which sounds like he's incredibly emotionally aware and intuitive and supportive. Lucky you, I have one of those too. But let's just imagine for a sec that a spouse who is listening to this and being like, yes, I am going to do a deep dive into what my personal needs are, and then I'm going to figure out how I can get sovereignty and like serve this like within myself. And then I'm going to use the language of I'm feeling X because this need isn't being met. But their biggest concern is like, my husband's going to freak out and think I'm attacking him. Like, how would you coach or recommend that person to enter this world of very emotionally verbal communication?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the nice thing about nonviolent communication is that you can come into it not from an emotional space. I think that also tone is met with tone. So when you step into a conversation with somebody, if you are highly inflammatory already just in your own being, but if you were to step in and be like, hey, I've been feeling some things around overwhelm and feeling really anxious, and I would love to have a moment to talk with you about that. Number one, the first thing also we ask for is like space. And again, let me preface this. This has been like years of work. Like Brett and I have done like deep conscious work on our communication, and we're not perfect. And we still have our moments where we're like, now we should like whatever it is. Like, we'll have like our little like snippy moments with one another. It's not all like, hi.
Right.
Let's have a conversation. Cause we're both like fiery people too. So but the biggest thing that I always, whenever there's any kind of, and you could say it as quote unquote, a confrontational conversation or something that you feel like might be a thing to step into. The biggest thing that I always ask for first is consent for that. So I'll walk into a conversation. I'll be like, hey, like I'm feeling some things. I really would like to have a conversation with you about that. Do you have space for that right now?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's
because
beautiful because like you've decided now's a good time.
Yeah, and it might not be a good time for them, or like when you vomit onto somebody and you go, that can be really overwhelming for you because you're just unloading your shit all over them because you've been thinking about all these things and you've been diving into what your needs are and you've been dissecting all of this, but they haven't been in your head, right? So they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where is this coming from?
Yep.
So first and foremost, always asking the person, are you open to a conversation about this? Or I would like to carve out some time for us. When is a good time in your schedule? I want to find something that, works for both of us, where you can actually be present. You can actually sit down with the person that you need to have a conversation with. And that both of you are coming to the table in a good space, not in like a overwhelm in between while you're like, one person's leaving, one person's coming home, like none of that, like just have a moment. And it doesn't need to be this big thing. And I think for her too, I'm going to go back to her question, is saying, I've been feeling a lot of overwhelm because I feel like I've been putting myself last. When I look at all the things that we're involved in, I really appreciate all the ways that we both individually show up in the world. And I'm feeling like I need to do more for me. Some of the things that I feel that have been lacking are, my need to get gym time in or spend time with friends or, do some more reading and journaling or meditating. Those are things that I can have that give back to me that I haven't been doing. I want you to know where I'm at because I might need to make some more requests of you in order to be supportive, in order for me to get these needs met.
Yep.
Really, because I want to be able to show up as my full best expression and full best version of me in this marriage as a partner for you.
Right. I hear you.
And when you communicate it as that, then it's not attacking. It's like, I've been like, and that's really what it is she's feeling overwhelmed and there's a lot going on and they've got busy lives. They've got booming careers. They've got a lot happening. I mean, there's so many different places that we could dive into this, and it feels like she's utilizing, some friends and support for dropping kids off. But I think for her, it's really looking at like, okay, well, what is it that I really want? If I want to be with the kids more and I love my practice and I love where my practice is going, how can I get creative within my practice in order to free up more time for me to be with my kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many different ways that we can dive into things to rearrange. But some of this, if you're wanting a different expression and you're wanting different things in your life, you're going to have to carve out different routes for the way that you show up in your day-to-day and the way that you show up in your routines.
Yeah. One thing that like most recently, so I always have a hard time relating on the like working out thing. Mentioned, gym time. So, and that's like a common thing that is mentioned in questions of like, when do you work out? And I'm like, oh, you're not going to like the answer. I work out from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. every morning, because my schedule is that way.
Yeah.
But so recently Kirby and I decided to kind of tackle this new thing. And I was like, oh, I don't, where am I going to find 1 to 2 hours a day to work on this? Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have said I was a morning person. I actually kind of posted a few weeks ago that like my morning routine is I kind of get up sometime between 6 and 7 and kind of like walk around the house like a lost person. But this past weekend, we got really inspired by something. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to find time. Getting up at 5 o'clock has been no problem. Yeah. Because I wanted to. Like, I wanted to get up. It was a priority. This thing that came out of nowhere became very important. And so, like, when I talk to someone, so if we were going to say, like, well, Amy, get up at 5. Like, it's freaking early. But if you want to know the people, men and women, who work that 8 to 6 and they've got the kids and they've got the this, they're either, if you start asking, they're either working out at 5 a.m. or 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I could never work out at 8 p.m. But so, and if her answer was like, oh, I just couldn't work out in the morning or at night, then I go like, I don't think that one of your unmet needs is really like working out, because it doesn't seem, you know what I'm saying? Is like, when something is important, all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm working out, so I guess I'm waking up at 5.
Yeah, there's no such thing as like, we don't make excuses for things. They're just not a priority.
Yep. So,
and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. Like, I don't fucking want to wake up that. Like, okay, well then whatever you would be able to carve out in there then isn't as much of a priority as sleep, which is okay, because sleep is also a very important recuperative thing for people, right?
Yep.
So again, like looking at what are those, so there's 2 things I want to bring up here. one, I love that you said get up early, because it's finding those times in your day for finding stuff for self-care. And again, self-care doesn't necessarily need to be like, I sit in a room and somebody braids my hair and like rubs essential oils on me for 3.5 hours. Like, it doesn't need to be this fucking extensive spa weekend thing, right? Like, that's another misconception about self-care. Also, self-care doesn't need to be this like, well, fuck you, I need this time for me, so like screw you and your needs. It doesn't need to be that either. It's like you just communicate what your needs are, find things that work both for you and the people that you need in order to support you, and then figure out how to get your needs met, right?
Yep.
But it's being direct and prioritizing yourself. And I love that she brought up the point, like, I keep putting myself at the bottom of the list of the priorities. I was taking care of a woman, incredible woman at the practice, really amazing job. And she was 2 kids, like tons of shit going on all the time. And she said, like, in this past year, one of her biggest things and one of her biggest mantras was like, I'm moving up the list. And having that concept for yourself of like, I'm moving up the list of, okay, there's a lot that's going on, but I have to start moving myself up the list, because if I'm continually trying to give out of like an empty tank, then I'm really just showing up as a really shitty version of myself in a whole bunch of places, rather than being my most potent version of myself in the places that I really want to be. Absolutely. So when we look at trying to fit in these places, there's 2 concepts I want to introduce. Is one, finding your sacred spaces throughout your day. So some of that might be that quiet of 5 a.m. And I've oscillated between, having a really regimented morning routine that like gets done in the early morning. And I've also had ones that, can kind of extend throughout the day. And I get like my movement, breathwork, meditation in throughout the day. You can do abbreviated versions of this too. We're currently doing like a Kairos Presence mastermind group that's been going. We're in the 12th week of 12 weeks with a group of 10 people. And it's been really beautiful to see like how that, commitment to those types of things really does cause an amazing shift within people. And so finding, okay, if I know that like these are things that I need, how can I set my day up and how can I end my day with things that are beautiful? Brett talks a lot about this as well, as like having a morning routine, having an evening routine. And what does that look like for you? And so that might be, I need to get up 30 minutes earlier so that I can, gently move through all the joints of my body, even if that's just my morning routine, do 10 big breaths and then sit in silence for 2 minutes.
Yep.
That can be something that is just an easy add, because we also try to put self-care and putting ourselves as a priority as this like, well, if I don't have like 3 hours to do this, then I guess I can't. But it's like, it can be 15 minutes and that's okay. It's just the dedication of
being present and conscious.
It's presence and consciousness. And so
that's such a good point. I want you to make sure you hit that second point. But you're so right. We're like, I don't have an extra 2 hours or an extra hour in my day. And it's like, well, can you find 4 15-minute chunks?
Yeah.
And being like, this is my 15 minutes and not wasting a second on like, okay, but hold on, I just have to like send that email. And it's like, no, start now, breathe and meditate right now.
Yep. And so even and knowing like, okay, what is it that I need? What is it that I need to delegate? And where am I willing to delegate and where do I not want to delegate? It's like, I don't want to delegate bedtime, but I could delegate doing somebody else doing my laundry. Or like, I don't want to, I don't want to do the grocery shopping. It takes an hour for me to like, or an hour and a half for me to go do this. It's like, what do you need to outsource potentially to free up your time in order for you to be doing the things that you really want to be doing? And sometimes that's a little bit scary because we feel like we have to be the ones to hold all the shit together. And also it's like the wheels aren't going to fall off if like, if the towels sit in the laundry for a hot minute, it's okay. So, and again, this is also, she's at an interesting, ages with the kids too, being 3, 9, and 11, because they're in a lot of different activities, right? There's like, you've got
they can drive themselves.
Yeah. And so and that's real too. And it's like, my kids are 5 and 2. So I imagine that I'll be stepping into another learning curve of figuring out, okay, what does it look like now? What does it look like now that the kids are like playing soccer and in dance classes and have all these other things? But then it's like, okay, what do I need to shift around in order to show up in the way that I want based off of my priorities of my family, my children, my practice? Like how does that all shift and how does that change?
Well, and sometimes it shifts on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah,
totally. I feel like we just expect people, like we see this formula, or like, we're like, okay, I figured out what I'm going to do. Every morning, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to fall asleep at 9:30 p.m. like after I've had sex with my husband for 15 minutes. Like, great, everything, I packed it into a 24-hour period. I'm drinking 100 ounces of water and all of that. It's wonderful. And then when we're that rigid, and it's like, okay, that's a great, like when nothing else is, like when you have the energy to do that.
Yeah.
But giving ourselves grace too, to realize like, but just as long as you know that the wheels are not falling off the cart the week that like you're going into a new moon and you have a really heavy cycle and you're like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm not doing it. The wheels are not off the cart. You don't
need to wake up at 5. Maybe you like do drop off and then make sure you're 10 minutes, before your shift starts at the practice, you do some breath work and some meditation.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, there's so many different ways that you can look at this, and for somebody in this situation, again, we talked about like when we have these like 7 million ways to answer a certain question too. It's like, okay, well, what is it that she's really looking for, and what are those needs that she really feels need to get met? And then who are the people that are going to help her do that? Like, is that having more people help out with the kids? Is that hiring an associate? Is that getting a coach to figure out like, what are her business systems looking like and how can they potentially be more efficient? Is it, getting somebody to help her, whatever it is, but it's like, we have to first identify like, what is the need? What is it that you really want? And so we talked about having these sacred moments, having that sacred time, like we talked about, of like in the morning, at this time, I do my morning routine. And in the evening, this is how I wind down. And we also, with this too, this has been a big revelation that I had through this Kairos Presence Mastermind that we did, was like, for me, I was always thinking like, oh my gosh, like if I want to sleep in a little bit and it's a weekend, and like if Brett's traveling and teaching a camp or, whatever, how am I going to, do I still have to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do my movement, breath work, and meditation? And it's like, no, I just bring the kids into the fold of that. Yep. Right. So the routine doesn't need to change just because they're around. They get brought into the ritual. Because then what are they seeing? They're seeing how to set their thing up. They're seeing breath work. They're seeing meditation. They're seeing movement. And it's like, you can do your own little thing. And then you can be like, okay, reach up. Like R2, I'm like, reach up towards the sky. Be a tree. Woo! And then I'm like, it's funny. I'm like, okay, do your breath work. And like, they'll just be like, and then they like go run around and do something else. But the morning routine looks slightly different, but it's like, I don't have to take myself out of my life every single time if that's not what is in the cards for that day.
Yep.
So it's folding. This is the concept that I want to bring in is stacking your self-care, right? So it's like, how do I find those moments where I can where I'm doing shit that I'm already doing, or doing things that I already need to be doing, and how can I fold in self-care into those places, right? So it's like, I wake up in the morning, I can do 30 seconds, swing my legs off the bed, do some stretches, move through my shoulders, do a couple head rolls, start getting my spine woken up, like doing some wrist rolls, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth. As I'm brushing my teeth, I can do some hip circles. I can move my knees around. I can roll my ankles. I'm getting like 2 minutes of movement in without even having to do anything outside of what I'm already doing in the morning. Or like looking in my closet, I can be like stretching slightly through things if I need to pick out something to wear. And then, driving to the practice, 2 minutes in your car, park your car, put it in park, close your eyes and breathe. Do some affirmations. It doesn't have to be this big thing. And those are the things that'll happen on the days where I'm like, I need a little more rest this morning. Waking up at 5:30 isn't going to happen.
Yep.
So how do I fold it into these different places where I can be like, oh, if I'm cooking dinner, I got a face mask on. Like, Like,
Yep. It's multitasking self-care. Oh my gosh, you're so right. Because we think that the people
we
who
have to
are
isolate ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Like,
there are moments where that's necessary. Yes.
Yeah. Lock yourself in a closet. But like, yeah, we totally do. We all think that like, okay, if I asked you, like, do you think you're doing a good job of self-care? And you were like, yeah, I actually do. I think I'm nailing it. In my mind, I paint a picture that like you figured out how to chime a bell, do 30 minutes of yoga, then 20 minutes of meditation, then 20 minutes of journaling, and then 50 minutes of meal prepping. And and we're like, no, I freaking like do some neck rolls while I'm like brushing my teeth. Well, that's dangerous.
Right.
That one, but like,
or even things like, for me, it's like I have, and this is a great example too. I talk about it in Kairos Business Mastery too, about like building your practice with like the ideal people that you want to be serving and that you connect with. Right. For me, I was like, I need to start working out more. Like, I was like, this shit is just my whole background. I danced all growing up. I did my undergrad in dance. I danced professionally after college in like contemporary companies. Like, I'm a mover. And I had put that on the back burner for a long time while I was in school and while, I had kids, and I was just like, this is just ridiculous. Like, I need to step back into this. And so how am I going to do it? I wanted to feel strong in my body again. And so I found this incredible studio that is like a dance and fitness, like empowerment center, really. Mm-hmm. And I had been going there. We knew the owners from, just being we just sort of knew them. And I had taken an instructor's class, and she was like, oh, like, you're really great. I can tell you have like movement and like body understanding. She was like, have you ever thought about teaching? And I was like, actually, I have thought about like teaching here, but it was years ago. And I taught also that whole time. So for me, I was like, yeah, like, sure, I'll do the little like audition for whatever. And they were like, you're amazing. We want to hire you. I was like, cool. So now for me, here's a great way to stack your self-care and get multiple needs met. On Wednesday nights, I teach a class. It's body weight exercises, like bands. I get to do whatever the hell I want for 60 minutes to like, again, Beyonce songs. Like, it's amazing. It's on the face of the planet. And it's filled with people that I resonate with. It's filled with like incredible humans that are just open and like really powerful women. And it's just this really great space for me to, one, hold myself accountable to other people in a space of service. Two, be able to step into a place of artistry as well as athleticism that feels good in my body that I can train. Three, be able to like dance around, have fun with a whole bunch of hella cool people. Four, like hang out with people that I ideally would love to be taking care of. Five, like it hits so many different places for me. And so to have that as one place that meets so many of my needs, like it meets my need of connection, community, authenticity, artistry, expression, like all of these different things. Yeah. And it's 1 hour a week. And it's like, I have a nanny that will come on Wednesday night because Brett's in the practice. So it's like, she comes for 2 hours. Like, I have her come 2 hours. Great. She's like a babysitter. She comes, I go, I teach. And for me, it's like, I get to work out. I get all these other needs met. So it's finding those places like, where is that? And they have childcare too. So if I want to go take class, I just look for a day where I'm like, okay, they have kiddo care at this time. So I'll go at this time and go take a class. Or I'm not in practice at that time and they have a class and the kids are in school. So I'm going to go do this. I don't need to, like, I'm not going to vacuum and do all this other shit because I decided I'm going to hire a cleaning lady to come.
Put myself up the list.
Like, yep. Moving myself up the list. Because I
love that idea of finding something that fulfills multiple.
Yes.
Because you could have been like, okay, well, I have a need for communication or a community. So I need to find time that I can get lunch with my girlfriend every week. And I need to move my body. So I need to go to the gym 3 times a week. That's great. But how present you have to be. One, you have to know yourself and your needs.
Yep.
Otherwise, and you have to be present and kind of remind yourself, because I would venture to guess that maybe there are some weeks where you're like, I just don't have time to do this. Like, I really, like, you could list that class as an obligation and like add to the busy, if you were just being really like low vibration and not like, And so
there are weeks where I'm like, oh God, I'm tired. But then I walk in there, I'm like, I fucking love it here. Let's go. Like,
I want to come take a class with you from Rice Lake. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, that's also what I'm talking about too, is like building your community and finding those places. Again, like the biggest thing that I can say in order for her to answer her question is like, yeah, we can have the quote unquote ability to do it all. We don't have to, right? There's ways that we can be like, I need to audit my life. I need to do some deep inventory of like, what is it that I'm doing? I'm running on autopilot, but I feel like I'm burning myself out. What is it that is meeting me with resistance and not in reciprocity? Because if I'm just banging my head against the wall because this is the way that I've always done it, but I'm not happy in the rhythm that I'm living my life in, then something needs to change. And that's okay.
It's totally okay.
It's totally okay.
Yep.
That was something to
36. Like, this is what happens in your 30s. You went into default for the last, 11 years. Your oldest is 11. And now you're like, wait, why am I
doing this?
Why am I doing this? Feels none of my needs. So feels their needs, not mine. So
totally.
You are an absolute pleasure. This was not even remotely. When you read this question, do you think this was like the avenue we were going to go down?
It's always, you never know where we're going to go.
I always, so when you listen to this episode, I'll have done a prayer before, because I always like start an episode with a prayer. And like, I feel like one of the biggest things I always ask for is just channel what this person needs to hear. Because holy shit, I can get off on a tangent that that person could be sitting going like, no, that doesn't help me at all. And so like, I think it was a divine intervention, a blessing of like, in you who have a slight ADHD, this is what you can talk about. This is what Amy needs to hear. So, all right, leave the people with where they can find more of you.
So you can find me. I will say this, I'm probably the best at connecting with people through Instagram because I'm just either on my DMs or back and forth with things. So it's at Dr. Kate Jones. You can find me through all things Kairos as well. So Kairos Training Culture, you can go to kairostrainingculture.com. Or on our Facebook page, also The Source Chiropractic. If you're in Oakland, you want to come like cruise through and check out the practice, it's thesourcechiropractic.com. Those are probably the three best places. But for me directly, I would say hit me up on IG or on my Facebook page. I typically respond faster on Instagram than I do on Facebook. I just realized that I didn't have that Messenger app on my phone, and I had like 14 messages from people. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know.
Facebook is a jerk. Their apps, sometimes they like hide it. Like if we're not friends.
They do. I don't know. It's so
like, where does that go?
Like, I didn't even know this was in there. So yeah, I'm usually a lot faster to respond on IG. But yeah, we're releasing schedule for 2020 for KTC coming out soon. So I'll definitely be jumping in the mix, facilitating this year, which will be really exciting. And we're doing a big event in March on the weekend of the 21st in Oakland, through Kairos. It's going to be geared towards the public, but it's called Soul Revival. So it's going to be a pretty incredible event as well. So many details to come.
So many things to come.
So many things coming out. Brett and I are releasing some projects too. So it's going to be a big year.
That sounds awesome. Oh, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me on here. It was a blast. I had so much fun chopping it up with you.
All right, She Slayers, that is the amazing Dr. Kate Jones. I hope you loved this conversation as much as I did. And until next week, bye guys.